Hello, year one economists. How are we all? Hopefully, you've had a good weekend. I can see as I'm recording this, you're all signing into Tim's register. Well done, well done. Anyway, I thought I would do a video today, quite a small but important topic. I don't really think it needs a Zoom. There isn't actually that much to kind of discuss. It's simply a video and two worksheets. It's just going to be one lesson as well. We're going to do something. I don't think we're going to continue this to Thursday. No, we're not. You're still answering the register. Well done. All right, so what I want to look at today, people, is national income, wealth, and the circular flow. I was thinking about last Thursday as well, what we did in the computer room. It may be worth printing off that PowerPoint, the equilibrium PowerPoint, with your answers on there. If you're maintaining a paper folder, I know obviously I see you half online, half not. But yeah, if you want to do that, feel free. If not, make sure, please, it is saved somewhere important, because my assumption now, and obviously, I know we're not always going to be perfect, the equilibrium is done and dusted, all right? So you need a document to refer back to when you're revising. And obviously, your textbooks as well are very good on that. Now, this slightly easier. There is a diagram, but it involves pictures, okay? So let's get to it, people. Well, I'm just going to put a heat on, actually. There you go. Right, what I want to do today is to recognise the difference between national income and national wealth, and I want to talk to you about the circular flow of income. Okay, now, if I was doing this in class, I would show you this video, but I cannot show you this video, okay, because as far as I'm aware, when you show videos while recording, the sound doesn't come through. So I'm going to give this as a resource. No, actually, that's it. I'm going to show you this on Thursday. I know I'm recording, but I can't stop start. Let me just make a note to show you it. Monday, Tuesday. Show video. Yeah, I'll show you that on Thursday, actually. That's fine. I mean, I'll attach this PowerPoint as a resource, so if you do want to watch it. But it's basically a statistician talking about the impact of income on health. The way he does it is absolutely brilliant. I think it's a really useful vid to watch. But we'll watch it at the start lesson on Thursday. All right, so two things then, income and wealth. And the first thing is you need to know that national income is seen to be a flow concept. We see it as a flow concept. National wealth is a stock concept. Okay, so national income is the amount of money earned and goods sold in a year. Okay. National wealth is the value of all monetary assets for a nation. So think of this in two ways. If you were going to apply it to kind of coming away from a nation and to a human being, income for a person is what they earn through working, okay? And that money flows in when you make your money, when you get paid, and it flows out as you spend, and it goes down, 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 then you get paid again, and money flows back in. It's like a bath, so to speak. National wealth is more like, for a person, the value of their house, their car, their stocks, their shares, their antique collection. Things that you buy with your income then become your wealth. And generally speaking, we don't make wealth every month. I get paid every month, but I don't buy a house every month. Okay, so you use your income to increase your wealth. Your flow then adds to your stock. Okay, and we know then that our wealth and our income is measured via GDP. It's a measure of your income in terms of all final and sold goods and services. Some really old stats here. The GDP of the UK in 2010 was over 1.3 trillion and GDP per capita 21.1k. You can obviously look up UK GDP 2020. I didn't make this PowerPoint in 2010. I don't know why I used 2010's figures, but I would strongly advise you to search for UK's GDP and GDP per capita now. I think we looked at that when we were doing the GDP stuff before the half term. In 2016, our GDP had grown from 1.3 trillion to 2.43 trillion. We were the seventh biggest economy in the world and the second biggest in Europe. And the question that I would ask would be, British GDP is not as good as it should be, though. Why? And the answer to that question comes from the Zoom that we did 2 weeks ago, where we looked at the kind of Britain's productivity problem, that we're just not a very productive nation, and that all the goodness that we have in financial services doesn't kind of undo the kind of low-skilled, almost lazy approach that we take to productivity. Okay, now there is a distinct correlation between our income and our wealth. So wealth, as we said, is that stock of assets, and we said that you kind of spend your income to generate wealth. But you can also say that wealth produces a flow of income. Okay, for example, and it's a bit like going back to an individual again before we take it to the national level. If I have a house, it's part of my wealth, but obviously it gains in value, and I can therefore sell that house off to provide me some income. But I'd be losing my asset, I'd be losing my house in that case. But what you can argue then is that countries with the highest levels of human and non-human wealth produce higher levels of income than those with lower levels. So the world's wealthiest nation in terms of, and if you think about it, human and non-human, so we're not talking about financial wealth here, we're talking about kind of high-level universities, highly skilled workers, loads of natural resources. America, very oil rich, stuff like that. Very productive in terms of metals, very, very much almost self sufficient, and it's got the highest income. So there's a correlation. Tanzania, very low wealth, very low income. Therefore, there's a correlation there. But sometimes countries can break that correlation between high wealth and high income. And a country like Nigeria really mismanages its wealth, so little income is generated. For example, we know that Nigeria is highly rich in oil, but lacks the resources to exploit it. By that, what we mean is it's got a lot of oil, but the country itself can't afford the infrastructure to actually dig and get hold of that oil, then bring it out of the ground, and then barrel it and sell it, all that kind of stuff. So obviously Western companies will then jump in and go, oh, we'll do that for you. And it goes from there. So sometimes the correlation breaks. Okay, now here is our model for today. We want to talk about the circular flow of income, and we're going to start with a very simplified economy. We're going to call this a closed economy, and there's not many of those. Maybe North Korea is probably the only one. So you've got two things going on. You've got households and you've got factories, but we're going to sum this down to one household and one factory. Let's see what goes on. Firms and households, okay? Now, you would argue in our closed economy that the households consume domestically produced goods and services. So the households benefit the firms by paying for the goods that they output. And you would also argue that the firms make factor payments to households. Number one, they supply households with products, which we have consumed as householders. And number two, second factor payment, is that your firms provide employment for people that work in households. Okay, so they pay wages, they pay salaries, and they give products, and households pay to consume. Okay, and that's very much a closed model. Simply speaking, I mean, it's not much reality to suggest that there is a country in the world that only has firms and households. What we need to do is we need to open this up, and we need to bring in the wider economy. So let's do that. First things first. We're going to open the economy by suggesting that households like to save. Okay, so they don't just consume. That would mean for every pound that you earn, you consume all of it. And I know that we say that the average Brit does that with the marginal propensity to consume of 100 or 1, whatever you want to call it. But in many countries that have got their heads screwed on, people might save 20% of their monthly salary, and they need to save that in the bank. But although let me start that again. The householders there are kind of removing money from that circular flow of income, but banks then re-inject that money back into the economy by investing, okay? And they will take our money, they'll parcel it up, they will spend money on shares to generate wealth for the company. So firms are investing, okay? Banks especially are investing. We also have money removed from a circular flow of income via taxation, okay? And in order for us to pay tax, we have to have government to pay it too. So the government, by taxing us, is removing money from this circular flow. But don't forget that the government then take our tax money and they spend it via government expenditure. And what you're seeing so far, CIG, you've got from AD, consumption, investment, and government spending. But now we're bringing in some externals. We're bringing in S&T, savings and taxations, okay? And the final thing is, households spend money on imports. They remove money from the British economy by spending money on imports from abroad. But similarly, that gives us the M from AD. Let's complete it with the X. Abroad, in theory, buys from us as well. So they pump money into our economy by buying our exports. Okay, they buy our exports. That is a far more complex model of a national, international, global economy, and that has made this a far more realistic model. And the thing to say is that the savings, the taxes, and the imports are seen to be withdrawals from the circular flow of income. And the investment, the government expenditure, and the export expenditure, the spending on our exportation, are injections into the circular flow. So, what you could argue is that if we go to the closed model, householders spend £1 on a product. Therefore, firms can pay householders £1 because they've made that pound. And that money will just, I'm moving my head around in circles, that money will just move around in circles between householders and firms and won't really do anything. But by saving and investment, by taxing and government expenditure, by imports and exports, the value of that pound can grow, okay, due to injections. But we're going to look at that before Christmas. I don't know if it's next week. It might well be next week with something called the multiplier. But for now, just know that a complex economy has moved from closed to open, and we have withdrawals and injections. Okay, so we know then that injections could be classified as spending within the economy, not from household. For example, government spending, money from exporting abroad, and investment by firms on new equipment. Withdrawals, leakages, are taking money away from the circular flow, and saving, which we don't spend, taxes paid to the government, and imports from abroad, and taxes obviously paid to a foreign firm and a foreign government. If we have complete equilibrium in the economy, which we know never happens, but if we were going to have an equilibrium situation, all injections will equal all withdrawals. Okay, therefore, output, income, and expenditure around the flow remain constant. If you've got more injections than withdrawals, so more money in than money out, and national income will raise to reflect greater spending. And if your withdrawals are greater than injections, your national income falls to reflect those withdrawals. And I put there, a rise in national saving should correlate with the drop in national spending. If every single person in Britain saves 20% of their income, however much their income is, that will correlate with the drop in spending relative. Okay. Just to evaluate as my final point then, no theory is perfect, and you would argue that the black, the grey, the hidden economies, the moonlighting, the subsistence living, make injections and withdrawals accurate, living self-sufficiently, those who don't work and they live off their own land, well, if they're not kind of monetizing, if they're not spending money to consume, if they're not saving, they'll pull away from the circular flow. Inflation can distort the market. Inflation, we know, is that general increase in prices, which may kind of artificially drop consumption. Population changes will skew the data. I mean, it doesn't go without saying, that the Chinese circular flow of income is going to be absolutely huge. As many of you put in your most previous assessment, this is due to their huge population. But you can't say that with regards to national income, every single Chinese person is benefiting in the same way. There's a hell of a lot of rich people. Similarly, there's a hell of a lot of kind of ultra poverty. Wars and national defence skew data. We said this with the PPF. When a country goes to war, it pulls its resources away from general consumption, investment, government spending, and puts all its efforts into war. So tanks, missiles, weaponry. Okay. And there's also no consideration in your circular flow diagram of those negative externalities of pollution, of consumption. If we're all sitting there consuming McDonald's, think about the impacts on health and that kind of stuff. Okay, the model doesn't really consider that. Short and sweet there, people. Okay, 2 things I want you to do. Number 1, a bit of maths. Now, this is pretty simple, I would say to you. Using the PowerPoint, okay, simply calculate the value of injections, then calculate the value of withdrawals. When it says the net activity, that's going to be injections minus withdrawals. If we know that, well, obviously, you've got to fill in 2 blanks there, read the sheet. You need to think about how to get those 2 missing figures, but everything added together should total up to the total figures. and then you've got some simple percentage change. And the last sheet is this one, quite a nice little activity here, just redrawing the diagram, so to speak. Question for part 2, redraw a circular flow diagram. I don't need you to do. All right. So listen, there you go. Not much to do for this afternoon, but this leads us nicely into Thursday's lesson, where we start to develop on some of these ideas. Okay, so I'm going to set a deadline today for 4:30. Yeah, have fun. Goodbye.